It is always great to have an opportunity to chat with not only a three-time Indianapolis 500 winner, but without any question, truly one of the greatest ambassadors for auto racing this nation has ever had in Johnny Rutherford. Johnny, before we get going, and we know you have some official capacities here, this is maybe even a bit personal for me, but you began your career at the original Devil's Bowl Speedway in Fort Worth, and you made your way to the Midwest to try your luck at auto racing with one of the finest gentlemen I ever had the personal opportunity to meet, and that is Jim McElreath. And
Yes.
he was a first-rate human being.
Yes, Jimmy passed away yesterday, I guess. I had a phone call from a mutual friend of ours about 10 minutes after he passed, actually. And his wife, Shirley, had 4 major strokes several years ago, and Betty used to go over and care for her occasionally. But Shirley didn't know at that time that Jimmy had passed, but I guess she's now been told, and she's, as good with it as you can expect. But anyway, it was sad because Jimmy was a dear friend of mine and a great mentor. He helped me a lot in my early career. We left Texas in mid-season 1960 at the Devil's Bowl, and drove up into the Midwest here and raced at Eldora and in super modifieds, and Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and super modifieds. And so we trying to make our way into the big time, and we both made it.
You sure did, and you got an opportunity with Dave Bateson Chevrolet and had such great success. Went on to win the United States Auto Club Sprint Car Championship in 1965. And I think one of the stories that I always like for some of our younger people to know, you were a many-year overnight success. I mean, you drove the 2-lane roads of the IMCA and everything in between before you had the glory here at Indianapolis.
Oh yes, it was a great learning curve. Running, you can't probably name a county fair or state fair or free fair in the Midwest that has a half-mile dirt track that I haven't run on in IMCA, and it was a great experience to learn how to drive on the dirt and win races on the dirt. And it was something that has helped me a great deal. The M16 McLaren that I had so much success with here, it was a flat bottom race car. It didn't have, only aerodynamics it had were the wings on the back and the front. And of course, when we set the track record here in '73, we had a rear wing on the thing as big as a picnic table. It was huge, and but we had 1,000+ horsepower that was the engine was producing. And the first time I'd ever gone flat-footed around this racetrack, and I did 4 laps and I had the 199 and the 198 average, fast lap 199. But that car was kind of like a sprint car. You could drift it hard, you feel it. I've seen those cards, a picture of AJ and I running when we had our duel here in '74, and in the turn. And his car has the left front on the line, and the rear left rear tire is a couple of feet off, and mine's the left front on the line, and the rear a couple of feet off. So we were running pretty hard.
We reminisced about a day like today just a few minutes ago because you have an unusual distinction as well, and others have done it too, but you walked into victory lane. The skies opened up.
Yes.
Your car hydroplaned, and you and Betty walked into victory lane, which was really kind of a memorable moment.
Yes. I've done a lot of firsts around
you
here.
have.
Walking into victory lane, and this has been a great place for me. I love it. It's a second home, and I can sing Back Home Again in Indiana, know all the verses, but I'm not sure what the one for Texas is.
But obviously, there's the fit with you and McLaren, and it's great to have McLaren
Yes,
back
I
here
am
in Indianapolis.
very excited about the fact that Team McLaren has come back to the Indianapolis 500. I was so disappointed in '79 when Tyler and Teddy pulled the plug on the Indy effort and went back to concentrate on the Formula One in the world, and it didn't turn out bad for me because I got a chance to drive the Yellow Submarine. And,
Pretty good race car.
Yes, very good race car. A different world than the other. You know, you don't drift a car like that, except maybe on a road course where it's the way it's set up. But anyway, it was. I'm really pleased and just very excited and proud of the fact that McLaren has asked me to be involved. And you know, since I won 2 races for McLaren, I can remember when they opened the Tech Center in Woking in England, and was invited over as one of their drivers, and they had the trophies that they had received for the 2 victories in the big trophy case, and while we were there were 35 drivers involved, and we were there, and we got to meet the Queen. The Queen came to the opening of the center, and it was a great thrill. I have that picture in my trophy case of me shaking hands with the Queen of England. It was great.
Pretty good for a kid from Texas.
Do what?
Pretty good for a kid from Texas.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Andrew's on one side, I'm on the other, so he'll work that side of the room, I'll work this side. Right? You got the back touch, Andrew?
Johnny, I have a couple of questions for you. I think your winning McLaren is currently in the museum here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. How did the contact came together with Team McLaren? Did they contact you? You flew over to England, and were you also involved in the design procedure of this car that they're asking you for advice? And another question is, you mentioned you had at that time around 1,000 horsepower in the engine. Can you give some more details of the car, of the engine regulations to that time when you were running or racing?
I'm not sure. Your first question was
What was the contact with McLaren?
with McLaren. Why did they? They were looking for a driver at that time in end of '72, and I was driving for Gerhardt Racing from California, and the chief mechanic, Phil Casey, was going to leave the team, and I didn't think I wanted to stay with the team without Phil. He was a great mechanic, and he was very good. We had some success, and Herb Porter was a dear friend, and he was in close with Teddy Mayer and Tyler Alexander, and did engines and things, and he knew that Teddy was coming to town to interview another driver, and so he called Teddy and arranged, or I talked to Teddy, and we arranged for me to meet with Teddy at the old Holiday Inn Northwest up here used to be on 465 right there in that area. Anyway, I met with Teddy, and we hammered out a deal, and I was hired to drive. And I had always told my wife, Betty, that if I ever found anybody that wanted to go racing as bad as I did, I'd be a winner. And that was the ticket. I drove 7 years for Team McLaren, won a lot of races and 2 Indianapolis 500s. So that was where I needed to be.
And about the engine, you said at that time it was 1,000 horsepower. At that time, you said earlier, the engine had around 1,000 horsepower. What was the regulation at that time? Was turbocharged, non-turbocharged?
Yeah, the engines were turbocharged Offenhausers, and I have McLaren in '76, I have the distinction of winning the last race at the Indianapolis 500 for an Offenhauser engine. And I have the distinction of being the fastest Offenhauser to ever go around here. So it was, a lot. And then we went to the Cosworth V8, and had some. Everybody was making the change then, and the Offenhauser kind of died on the vine.
Johnny, what's been your impression of the way Fernando has taken to this track and stuff, and what's just been your general observations of the way he's run this, especially this week?
He is a professional race driver, and he's won the world title twice, and it shows. He's done very, very good in his tests. He just whistled right through his driver's test. At the end of the day, he ran 220 or 222, I think, and it's the cars. That says a lot for the cars. They're pretty stable, but I look for him to do very well. But I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with him yet. He's had other mentors trying to guide him, but I have a couple of things I want to tell him about racing around here, and I look forward to that. And he's good. There's you just watch him. He goes out and practice and does what he has to do, and that's always good. That's always good.
You were mentioning that it took to the place duck to water, or those type of terms. If I'm watching a new driver on a track, is there any way that I could take a look at the line that they're doing? What are you looking for in the line, in the way that they approach the turns, those kind of things? Is it something that a non-driver can pick up on and say, that guy's got it, or that woman has it?
Oh, from experience of watching here, you don't just come here and drive. I've been all the way around this track many, many times to different observers post, watching cars and watching their lines and attitudes and things. And watching his line it's perfect. He's right on. It's where he needs to be. Sometimes he gets a little under the white line with his left side tires, and that can be tricky, but he handles it well, and so does everybody else that's running around out there. They're all cutting the corners a little bit, but it's you look for the things, the car, the attitude of the car, his ability to maintain the same line around the racetrack. This place got 4 turns, and they're all alike, but they're different. And it can be different. I can remember going out when I was driving for McLaren in the M16, and in one day, probably out on the track 6 different times during the day, and the car was never changed. It was the same every time, but it was different. That this place has so much like that. It can be different. You can go out and have the car thinking that's perfect, go out and it's terrible, and a couple hours later. So and that's part of learning this place. It has a lot of ground rules, things that you need to learn.
Three Indy 500 wins, but which one of those maybe has stayed with you the most over the years?
All 3 of them. No, I've often been asked the same question, and I'd have to say the '74, the first one, because of my battle with AJ. We raced hard for a lot of laps, and it was the one that I started in 25th starting spot. Had a technicality and with the new chief steward, and we had lost an engine in practice that Saturday morning, and the guys went back to the garage and changed the engine in record time, 58 minutes. They had the engine changed and ready to go. And A.J. Foyt and I had been battling for the pole position, we up and back, and we were making changes, and we were close, but I think we had him. And he sat on the pole, and we had to go qualify the third day because of the call of Tom Benford, and started pole in the 9th row, 25th. And they dropped the green flag, and in 12 laps I was running third. The car was absolutely phenomenal. It was so good. And, you know, we went on, and I knew if AJ had the 4-cam Ford V8, and I had the Offenhauser. And I knew if I kept the pressure on him, I couldn't quite handle him down the straightaways because that thing had just enough on me that I'd get to the corner, it could have held him out, but I wouldn't do that. I let him have the racetrack, and we did that lap after lap. And I knew if I kept the pressure on him, every time he looked in the mirror, he saw that star on my helmet, that I could run him out of right rear tire or engine, and I ran him out of engine.
You mentioned there are a couple of things you wanted to tell Fernando Alonso about racing around here. So what are those things?
Do what now?
You mentioned there are a couple of things you wanted to tell Alonso about racing around here. So what are they?
Well, that's trade secret. No, it's just little things that he needs to think about. You know, he's a race driver, a good race driver, and so he just needs to think about traffic and some things that can happen. That, you know, this is a long race, 500 miles, right at 3 hours, and you've got to really pace yourself and be in the right place at the right time at the end. And that all comes with pit stops. And I've always said that if I tell the rookies, if you can run a good steady race all day and have good pit stops without any major problems happening, you can finish in the top 5 here. Pretty easy. You know, just be there, because that's the way it unfolds when you look at the records. You run steady race all day and good pit stops, you'll be up front.
Some hot stove league talk, since we're at a hot stove point. Your generation ran anything with 4 wheels and sometimes with 2 wheels. And sometimes 4 wheels with only 3 on the ground, as I recall. Of the generation of drivers that are out there, including Alonso, who do you think that you could transport back to, I don't know, 1969, 19 whatever, and still see them as competitive as they are today? Is there anybody that strikes you as that person would have it?
Oh, there are a lot of them that I think could go back to that period you're talking about and race on the dirt. You know, there's nothing feels any better than in a well-prepared championship dirt car on a well-prepared mile dirt track. You know, running about 150, 60 mile an hour in the front straightaway, and then pitching it into the corner and standing on the gas. You know, that's a big thrill. But that was from my era. Today it's different, and I got the couple of days ago to set in his car with the seat out of it, you know, and they're huge. The cockpits in these new cars are very big, but then they pour a seat for you to fit in there, and that's the energy absorbing materials. And I sat in the car, and they put the steering wheel on, And it would take me a month to learn how to run the steering wheel on one of those things. And all of the lines and the fittings and the wires that keep those things together and what they can do, it's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible.
Johnny, I can't resist but going back to 1976 when the rains came and it became apparent, at least to people on television, that A.J. Foyt had a broken sway bar. Were you aware at that time that that was his situation? And what was your confidence level trying to wait out the rain? And what do you think would have happened if the sun had come out?
At the moment, I really didn't care what was wrong with his car, except that I was outrunning him. And, you know, you have mixed emotion about leading the race and stopping it because of rain, and you hope that they can get the track clear. In fact, they had the track ready, and everybody was in their cars ready to go, and the bottom fell out, and it rained hard again. And that takes 2.5, 3 hours to get this place ready after it rains. And so they decided that it was 102 laps. That's past halfway. It's 200 lap race. So they called it, and Betty and I got to walk into victory lane.
Johnny, as we talk about everything that Fernando is going through, I think about one of my early jobs here where I went to the garage at the crack of dawn, and I didn't come out of the garage with a race car until it was time to put it on the grid and race it. And all of a sudden, the entire facility had filled with people, and it was awe-inspiring, really, to watch that, because it was bam, it was like that. Have you talked, or do you think Fernando understands on race day how different this racetrack looks and feels when it becomes race day, and your first recollections of that first Indianapolis 500?
It's awesome. It is awe-inspiring to see. I always tell people, go to Indianapolis and you'll see as many people as you want to see at one place at one time. It's pretty incredible. And last year was a throwback, and hopefully this year is going to, I hear, is looking good. So it's, this place was incredible. This day. And when I first came here, there was, Indianapolis was the largest attended sporting day event in the world. Second on that list was first day of qualifying. 250,000 showed up here for qualifying. So, it's times change and things change, but I really hope we have a big crowd and Fernando can awe at it because of he runs all over the world in the Formula One cars, and each country has large attended races. So it's we'll see what he thinks about this.
I understand that you're also going to be in the car in the parade. You're going to be in a car in the parade, actually.
Yes, next Saturday I'm going to drive the M16 that I won in '74.
Will you be tempted to just keep on going and see how far
Well,
you can take it?
I if there's an open spot in the field, I might.
We don't blame you for that.
Hi, JR. This conversation has subtly gone on for many, many decades now, since the 70s anyway. What do you see down the road in terms of auto racing, in terms of power, in terms of other changes that we might see? Put on your little hat here and give us an idea. What do you think?
I gave up thinking a long time ago.
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah. No, it's it's hard to say. The changes we've seen, or that I've experienced here, from a tube frame chassis with a aluminum body on it and a Offenhauser engine, producing then probably 450 horsepower. 18-inch wheels on the back of the thing with a tire that was 6 inches wide tread to 14-inch wide rear tires and you know, plenty of horsepower for the car itself. And it's just a lot of changes, a lot of things going on. Like I say, it would take me a month to learn how to do the steering wheel in the car, and that's all technology, you know, and it's pretty incredible if you get right down to it, seeing what these cars are made of and how they're designed and what's going on and what the driver has to know about them. So it's like everything, it changes, and in 5 years, what's it going to be? You know, is it going to have turbine wheels in them to keep them straight on the track, and you know, you can sit and think about it a lot, but you won't know till it happens. So stick around.
Flew. Have you flown any lately? You got rid of your you had two P-51s.
I had,
did you
yes.
not?
I was owner of two P-51 Mustangs that I bought, and one was a little later than the other one, and had it built from the ground up in California. And I've flown all over the United States in my P-50. Got a couple of 100 hours in a Mustang, and great airplane. I wish I had one now because they're worth about $2 million. So, yeah.
Johnny, two more questions. In nowadays racing, especially open wheel, aero testing or wind tunnel testing is a key for success. Can you mention how your M16 you drove, was there already wind tunnel testing technology existing? And secondly, you mentioned just earlier when you sit in the current car of Fernando, if I understood it correctly, you have energy absorbing material. How was the safety standard of your M16 when you drove?
I have jumped in cars. I drove Foyt's car once when I had trouble with my car, and I jumped in one of Foyt's cars, and the seat didn't have a seat for it, and so we used a packing quilt and folded it up and put it in the back of the thing, and that was the energy absorbing material in the car. And but that, you know, man, just anything to get the job done. And so I went out and ran plenty quick enough to get in the race, but it dropped the valve, and we didn't get to qualify it. So it was, but I have, you know, packing quilts came in real handy sometimes. What was it? Wind tunnel? I don't think so. Wind tunnel testing was something I guess was new, except maybe in Formula One or other types of racing, but I don't think we ever did. The rules kind of dictated that, you know, what you could have and run, and the way it was designed and the way it was, you know, was out. You had the chassis, which was monocoque chassis, and the wings. They kept changing those because we kept going. You know, when I ran a fast lap of 199 around here, and the USAC, you know, immediately started changing the boost in the turbochargers, slowing the cars down, and it was, you know, it's just part of the growing to where it is today, you know, and it's it changed a lot, you know, from the original original Roadster that I drove here, drove 2 years in Watson Roadsters, and then the rear engine cars came along, and they were, because of the independent suspension and not necessarily because the engine was in the back, but the cars were very good. And then the tires started changing, getting wider, more grip, and you know, it just, the speeds just kept escalating.
The questions for Johnny.